Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into Operation Sindoor. This was a military operation that really sent shockwaves across South Asia.
Absolutely. It's often seen as, well, a pretty decisive moment for India regarding terrorism, and it definitely shifted things between India and Pakistan.
Right. So our plan today is to unpack this operation, what it was, why it happened, how it went down, and what the fallout was. We're basing this on the publicly available info, of course.
Exactly. It's a complex event, and understanding it gives you a real insight into modern counterterrorism and regional dynamics.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Operation Sindoor, what exactly are we talking about here?
So this was a military operation by the Indian Armed Forces. It kicked off on May 7th, 2025.
May 7th, okay.
Yeah. And the main goal was hitting terrorist bases, specifically ones inside Pakistan, and also in Pakistan-administered Kashmir, or PoK.
Got it. Targeting infrastructure there.
Precisely. Neutralizing those bases was the key objective.
And the name, Sindoor. It's quite specific, isn't it? There's a reason behind that choice.
There is, and it's quite poignant, actually. It was chosen very deliberately. It's a tribute to the victims of the Pahalgam terror attack.
Ah, the one on April 22nd, 2025.
That's the one.
Yeah.
26 Indian civilians were killed, mostly Hindu men, and Sindoor is the vermilion powder.
Right, worn by married Hindu women.
Exactly. So when these men were killed, their widows, in effect, lost their Sindoor, naming the operation that, well, it connects the response directly to that loss.
Wow. It really adds a layer, doesn't it? Makes it feel very personal, not just strategic.
It certainly frames the Indian perspective that way, yes. A direct answer to that specific tragedy.
Okay, so we have the what and the why. Let's get into the how. How did an operation like this come together? It must have taken some serious planning.
Well, what's interesting from the reports is how secret and apparently fast the planning was.
Fast? How fast?
Sources suggest it was put together in just 2 days. Intense sessions in South Block.
2 days. That's incredible for something this significant.
It implies a high level of readiness or perhaps pre-existing contingency planning. It involved senior people from the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy working together.
Okay, so coordinated across the services.
Yeah.
And the targets themselves, where were they hitting?
Reports mention a total of 9 bases. 4 of them were said to be inside Pakistan proper.
And the other 5?
In Pakistan-administered Kashmir. So a mix.
Any specific locations mentioned?
Yes. Bahawalpur, which is known as the headquarters for Jaish-e-Mohammed,
Right.
and Morid-K, the Lashkar-e-Taiba headquarters, those seem to have been key targets.
Okay, others too.
Yeah, places like Gulpur, Bimber, Bagh, Kotli, Sialkot, and Muzaffarabad were also apparently hit. Other hideouts and operational centers, presumably?
It's quite a spread. Covers a lot of ground.
It does. Suggests a fairly comprehensive targeting list.
And the operation itself, you mentioned it kicked off May 7th. What was the timeline like on the ground or, well, in the air?
Very quick, apparently. It reportedly started at 1:05 a.m.
Middle of the night.
Yeah.
Standard procedure.
And it was all over in just 25 minutes.
25 minutes, that's it.
That's the reported duration. In that time, they apparently fired 24 missiles.
Wow. Fast, intense, and then out. Element of surprise, maximizing impact before any real response could be mounted, I suppose?
That would certainly seem to be the logic, yes. Minimize exposure time.
And technology. We heard some advanced systems were used.
Yes, that's another significant aspect. Reports indicate this was the first operational use of the S-400 air defense system.
The S-400, that's a big deal, isn't it? That's a very capable system.
Extremely capable. It's a long-range surface-to-air missile system.
Oh, yeah.
Using it operationally here. Well, it sends a message about capability and perhaps intent to control the airspace or deter counterattacks.
What else? Other munitions.
Scalfy missiles are mentioned. Those are long-range air-launched cruise missiles, good for precision strikes on fixed targets.
Okay.
And also hammer missiles. Those are precision-guided air-to-ground munitions, too.
So a mix of sophisticated standoff weaponry suggests careful target selection and wanting to minimize risk to pilots, perhaps.
That's a reasonable inference, yes. High precision, potentially launched from a distance, using advanced systems. It points to a carefully planned strike package.
Okay, so India carries out this strike. Deep inside Pakistan and PoK, quick operation, advanced tech. How did Pakistan react?
Well, the immediate public reaction from Pakistan, according to the sources, was a claim that they had shot down several Indian Air Force planes.
Shot down Indian planes.
That was their claim, but India immediately denied it, flatly rejected the claim.
Right. So Classic conflicting narratives in the immediate aftermath.
Yeah.
Information warfare alongside the kinetic action.
Pretty much. It makes getting a clear, unbiased picture tricky, especially in the heat of the moment. You have these two very different stories emerging.
And the rest of the world. How did the international community respond to this?
Generally, with concern and calls for de-escalation. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, urged restraint on both sides.
Standard UN response, urging calm.
Yes. And major powers like China and Russia also expressed concern. Other nations too. Nobody really wants to see a major escalation between two nuclear-armed neighbors.
No, absolutely not. So the international reaction was basically, everyone calm down.
That seems to be the gist of it, yes. A lot of diplomatic pressure to prevent things from spiraling.
Looking back then, what are the main takeaways from Operation Sindoor? What makes it stand out?
I think there are a few key things. First, as you mentioned, the depth of the strikes. This wasn't just across the line of control.
No, this was hitting targets deep inside what Pakistan considers its territory.
Exactly. And reports suggest this was the first time India had undertaken military action that deep. That signals a significant shift in strategic thinking, moving beyond defensive actions at the border.
A more proactive, maybe even preemptive stance.
You could interpret it that way. It certainly suggested a willingness to project power further afield in response to perceived threats. That's a big change.
What else stands out?
The operational side, the secrecy involved in the planning, and the speed.
The 2-day planning window.
Right. And the coordination needed between the Army, Air Force, and Navy to pull it off in just 25 minutes. It speaks to a high level of operational capability and integration.
So both strategically significant and operationally quite sophisticated.
That appears to be the case based on the information we have.
And this ties back to India's stated policies, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This operation is widely seen as a very concrete example of India's zero-tolerance policy towards terrorism.
Right. Sending a message that attacks will have serious consequences.
Precisely. It underlined the government's position that it would take, quote, necessary measures to protect its security and citizens, even if that meant crossing borders.
So the main takeaway really is this demonstration of resolve and capability.
I think so. Operation Sindoor was a powerful signal. Domestically, it likely showed resolve. Internationally, it demonstrated both the will and the capacity to use significant military force against terrorism, as India defined it.
Well, this has been a really fascinating look into Operation Sindoor. It's clear it wasn't just another incident, but a really pivotal event.
It certainly seems that way, and it leaves you thinking about the longer-term consequences.
Yeah.
How do actions like this affect stability in the region down the line? What does it tell us about how counterterrorism might evolve globally? These aren't easy questions.
Definitely food for thought. And just to reiterate, everything we've discussed today is based on publicly available news reports and analyses surrounding the event. We're aiming to give you that deeper understanding.
Indeed. And perhaps the final thought to leave you with is to consider the implications. When a nation shows it's willing to go to such lengths, crossing borders with significant force, what does that mean for the rules of engagement, real or perceived, in the future? How might other nations respond or adapt?